I, 42M, think wife, 40F, might be cheating. I have recently been starting to wonder if my wife might be cheating, but am not sure what to do from here. I have no smoking gun for evidence, so I don't want to confront her or bring it up in case nothing is happening, or to have her cover things up. It has just been small things and a spidey sense. About 4 months ago she started working out a lot more and became much more interested in how she looks. She is very attractive but never really wore much makeup or did much with her hair. She has also started being protective with her phone, which I know is a bad sign. It is normal for us to go into each other's phone, but no, it never leaves her side, and if I ask for it to take a picture or something, she will tell me to use mine. She has also been staying late at work more often and has been taking a few more out-of-town trips for work. In this last 4 months she hasn't initiated any kind of intimacy and only gives me pecking type of kisses. I tried to initiate with her a hand full of times and she rejected me a few times, and a few times she let me go through with it but wasn't engaged and just laid there. It made me feel really bad, worse than getting rejected outright. I brought up the lack of intimacy a while back and she said that she was exhausted all the time from being a mom, work, and lifting weights. She said that she would try to do a better job and kiss me later that night, but nothing has changed. I have wondered if it might be some kind of midlife crisis kind of thing. There is a guy at her work that I am thinking could be trouble. My wife used to talk about him a lot, but a few months ago she quit mentioning him. But I know they still work closely together. From what I can gather, he is married with kids and told my wife that he is having marital issues. I met him briefly a few times and he basically ignored me. We were around a lot of other people. He isn't nearly as attractive as me and definitely not in great shape like me, not to brag but it's true. I am big and strong and he is kind of average and a little overweight. But he dresses flashy and is outgoing and likes to drink. I don't really like drinking, and my wife has mentioned a few times that she wished I would go out drinking every now and then. I graduated high school and he has a master's degree. He also makes a lot more money than I do. I train fighters and love what I do, but make a very modest living. This guy probably makes 6x what I do and flaunts what he has. I just bring up all that as my assessment of how we differ. The biggest thing that I have been wondering about is that this last trip for work was at a tropical resort type of place, and my understanding at the time was that there were a big group of them going. It turns out that it was just my wife, the flashy guy, and the CEO. The CEO is very old and doesn't really interact socially, he is just all business. In my imagination, my wife and this other guy spent a lot of time together over that week doing who knows what. My dilemma is that I want to see if my gut feeling is right, but don't want to cause a bigger issue by accusing her or asking. We have had a few ups and downs over the years, but I've had a pretty good overall marriage from my side. No major issues or anything. I am not the most outgoing guy and I don't make much money, which has been a small issue for my wife. She says I am not living up to my potential, and I could make a lot more money doing something else. I don't want to make it sound like she is obsessed with money in any way, but I know women are more comfortable with a bigger nest egg. She thinks I can do other things, but I am not really qualified for anything other than fighting or training fighters. That's basically been my entire life. Or, possibly being a personal trainer. None of those things are big money makers. But other than those things, she seems pretty happy. A friend of mine said I should keep my suspicions to myself and start doing things to spy and collect evidence, if it's there. But I feel weird about violating her privacy. If she is cheating, I can't imagine I would ever stay with her. I hope I am wrong about all of this. But thoughts of her cheating are starting to flood my mind, and I feel like I need to find out either way. We have 2 kids, and that is the part that scares me. I am involved in every part of my kids' lives, and my heart would be broken to only see them half the time. Sorry for the long post. I would love to hear some ideas on how to deal with this update, so here is the newest information. I was able to get the login information for our cell phone account. She uses her phone a lot for work, and nothing looked weird until I started sorting the numbers and times. There were a ton of texts to one specific number at times very late at night, a few hours after we go to bed. I'm going to see whose number that belongs to and find a way to get into her phone and see what name it is saved under. After I saw this, I started to get emotional and angry. I tried to tell myself it could be a mistake or some girlfriend of hers. Last night I tried to initiate, expecting to be rejected. And rejected I was. She said she was sorry but was too tired and had a headache. I told her that I was feeling like we weren't connecting very well. She said she is sorry and will try to be better. She said that last time. I didn't push the issue or anything, just told her good night and went to bed. This morning she told me she was thinking about taking a girls' trip to Vegas. She doesn't gamble. I asked who she would go with, and it was a few girls I never met. Apparently friends from college. Maybe all this is a coincidence, but a lot of stuff is looking weird. Background: we have been together for 6 years now and we are a bit of an odd couple. I am a homebody with no real drive to do anything or go anywhere other than work. She is an adventurer and loves to travel out of country and try new things. We are also different culturally, as I am a southern white boy and she is Vietnamese, been in the States most of her life. Finally, we are also different mentally. I am normally a logical, deliberate person and she is borderline bipolar with fits of rage and depression from time to time. We live in the southeastern US. Our situation: she told me this week that she is having urges to cheat on me. She wanted to talk about options for how we can proceed and still be together while fulfilling her other desires. For example, the idea of a throuple, another guy, or a V relationship where she can go have sex with this other dude whenever but still come home to me, etc. This discussion did not take me by surprise, as she has been very open with her feelings over the years, and I know I was not able to meet all of her needs. The reality of this all really hit me this week, and I told her I am not comfortable with it. I don't want to be some chump sitting around the house while his wife is out getting busy. She suggested we take a week of separation to see how we feel about each other afterwards. She will be heading to a hotel tonight. While I love her, I know this relationship has been difficult for me and seems to be a constant drain on my mental state. She requires a lot of validation and reassurance, which I am not very good at delivering. I feel like this is inevitable, but it's going to hurt a lot. Question: what should I do while we are separated to really understand how to move forward? Any advice in general about this situation is also welcome. Update: hey folks, this got a lot more attention than I expected. Thanks for all of the replies. The morning that I posted this, she was still home and sleeping in. After she woke up, she decided not to go to the hotel and confronted me to work things out. She directly asked me if the relationship is over or not. She then showed me all of the Valentine's gifts I have given her over the years, slideshows of our experiences and my commentary each year, and it made me realize I was being a doofus. We talked about the cheating aspect, and it was more of a miscommunication between us and not her asking permission to go outside of our relationship. I even showed her this thread. She read all of the comments. She felt my version of events was very one-sided and not fair to the actual timeline. She wanted me to post some additional facts below that I am in agreement on. Additional background: we are both equally attractive and financially independent. I was bad in the sack from the beginning of the relationship. I only have had one other sexual partner before her. She has tried to coach me on various things like how to arouse her and pleasure her, but to no avail. She initiates sex 99% of the time and has tried to spice things up with lingerie, etc. Despite all of this, she had accepted it for what it was. Only recently she started to have urges to stray. She brought this up in conversation with me to see what we can do to resolve it. My initial question was to ask her, do you want an open relationship? To try and understand what she was asking. She researched it and felt open relationship would not work out as many comments had affirmed below. She wanted to know my thoughts on the V or throuple situation. During that conversation we talked about my general apathy about the subject and our relationship. She stopped the discussion there and said we need to focus on understanding why I felt this way. She asked if we should spend some time apart to see if I actually miss her when she is away. That is when we decided that she would go to a hotel the next day and spend a few days away from me. So those are the things I left out. This additional info will probably change how most of you felt about this. I was trying to be brief before but realized now that a lot of this info was pertinent. However, now she is having a big problem with just how quickly I was ready to drop out of this relationship when she has viewed our love as unbreakable and very strong. So now we are trying to figure out how to work through that and build back that trust in the relationship. I know I'm a monster. I, 32M, am not here for forgiveness or advice, nor do I care about any condemnation from anyone. I am cold-hearted and evil. Nothing you say will affect me in any way. Maybe this is more of a warning? That there are people like me out there. It's been about 3 years since my D-Day. My wife, 33F, had started to act shady and I was researching methods to monitor her phone and computer. I wanted to try to gather some solid evidence. While I was doing that, I opened a letter I got the day before. In it was a speeding ticket, together with a picture of my wife in her car with the coworker I was suspicious about. Examining the date, I soon figured out this was the time she was supposed to be at a work seminar. So there was no longer any doubt about what was going on. The following Friday, my wife had her usual 3 or 4 glasses of wine to wind down from the week's work. I put half a crushed sleeping tablet in her last class and she was out cold. Yes, I drugged her to find out the truth. I don't apologize for it. I opened her phone with her thumbprint and started going through it. I installed spyware and downloaded everything. There wasn't anything conclusive there, except for some strange messages back and forth with her coworker always talking about some presentation. It looked like they were presenting stuff 24/7. I figured there must be something else, maybe a different app or maybe a separate phone? I looked everywhere. Finally I found a phone in the glove box of her car. I opened it the same way and this was the motherlode of evidence. Again I copied everything and installed spyware. I woke up the kids 4 and 6. I left the 2 phones on the table in front of her with a post-it note simply saying I know everything. I took the kids to my parents, told them what was going on and that I would be gone for a while. Since I had been suspicious of my wife, I had already lined up a lawyer, new bank accounts and so on. Over the next week I prepared for the inevitable confrontation by getting all the paperwork ready for several eventualities. I had 1 set of papers for a clean-cut divorce, a post-nup, in case we ended up discussing reconciliation, and so on. The pain of the situation was unbearable, but I knew what this was. I knew what I needed to do. I could not show any weakness or doubt. I had to be in control. Over the course of the week my wife was panicking more and more, hundreds of messages and missed calls, and she would get everybody around her to try to call me as well. I simply ignored all of it. I put the phone in a drawer and got on with what I knew I had to do. When I was ready I sent a message to my wife that I would be over to talk in the afternoon. When I arrived she was an absolute mess. As soon as I came through the door, she fell to her knees in front of me and begged for a second chance and forgiveness. I was having none of it. I pulled my legs from her grip, and just said let's sit and talk. It probably took her good 15 minutes to make it to the kitchen table. I showed no emotion. As soon as she was seated, she noticed I was not wearing my wedding ring. Then I gave her the documents for divorce. She broke down for 20 minutes just sobbing. I said nothing. When she was finally able to speak again, she said she would do anything to save our marriage. I pulled the divorce papers back and gave her the post-nup. She was sobbing again. I read slowly through my copy. Basically it said I could divorce her for any reason I deemed fit. She would get nothing from me. She will get half or what she was entitled to but no child support, no alimony, none of my pension and none of my savings. Custody would be 50-50. She signed it right away. I told her she should probably get a lawyer and run the agreement by them before she gave it back to me. She said she didn't need to. I told her if she wanted to change something, that I was open for discussing it the next 2 weeks. I never actually used the spyware for anything. but I have been able to verify that she has never again been in contact with her AP. Then I told her she had to write down a complete timeline, and that I knew almost everything. If I caught her in a lie or omission, now or at a later date, the outcome would be immediate divorce. I gave her a week to type it out and left. A week later she sent me a large file that detailed everything, including her excuses and justifications. I told her to get ready to go out. I printed out a hard copy, went over to our house to pick her up. I drove her straight to her AP's house and parked in the driveway. She was in total panic at this point, asking me what we were doing there. I gave her the hard copy and told her, "You are going to go confess what you've done to his wife." She started hyperventilating. I don't remember exactly what it is she said, but it was something along the lines of "I can't do this to him" or something like that. I took back the hard copy back, started the car and drove down the road of 5 to 6 blocks to the closest bus stop. At this point I was so angry I was fuming. I commanded her to get the F out of the car. She refused, saying, "Let's talk, please, we can work this out." I guess my facial expression said it all. She shut up and stared at me. She didn't know what to do. I told her very calmly, "You just had the choice between your AP and your family. And you just chose your AP. It's not like I'm leaving you beaten and bloody in a ditch. This is a bus stop. You're a grown-ass woman, I'm sure you can figure it out. Now get the F out of the car." My tone really left no wiggle room. She got out and asked, "What happens now?" I just drove off so hard that it slammed the door shut. I turned around and drove straight back to the AP's house. I could see my wife starting to run towards me, and I could hear her yelling in the distance as she understood what was going on. I was going to tell the AP's wife. It turns out his wife was 5 months pregnant. She started crying loudly when she read my wife's timeline. Her husband came running around the corner, only to freeze for a second before he bolted through the house and out the back door as soon as he recognized me. His wife later divorced him and really did a number on him in court. Anyway, at home my wife was panicking and begging while I packed some things and left. On the way out I told her that her confessing to the wife was a test. It was a test to see if she was over her AP and if she really took ownership of what she had done. She failed the test, and now that I had told his wife, my wife's chance to make me consider if reconciliation was even possible, that chance was gone and there was no way of turning back time. As a result of her adultery, we would divorce. I rented a small cheap house outside of town, more of a cabin actually. It had a water heater and lights but very little electrical heating. The main heat source was one of those cast iron fireplaces. It was in the middle of winter with -15 degrees Celsius at night, so I pretty much had to keep the fire going or the house would get very cold. Over the next few days in the cabin, my mind just crashed. I started drinking very heavily. Even soaked in alcohol, the pain was simply unbearable. At one point I decided to end it. I loaded my shotgun, put it in my mouth, and pulled the trigger with my toe. It just went click, the goddamn shell was a dud. I drank even harder after that. The next few days are sort of a blur. A few days later, when I woke up, in a pool of my own puke, blood and waste. I had a concussion. I also had terrible pain in my arm and chest. I was hypothermic and severely dehydrated. It took me a minute to figure out that I had fallen on top of my whiskey bottle and smashed it. Glass jars was sticking out of my arm and chest. When I finally made it to the bathroom I saw I had a dark purple black eye, so I probably banged my head on the floor pretty badly. Somehow I managed to clean myself up a bit. I changed out of my filthy clothes. Not that it mattered much. After I pulled the glass bits out, it didn't take long for everything to be covered in blood. I wasn't really all there, but somehow I figured out that I needed to call an ambulance. I went outside to wait for them, but I was unconscious by the time they arrived. My wife was still listed as my emergency contact, and I guess someone called her at some point. She was there when I woke up. She was talking constantly. I said nothing, not a single word. I went back to my little frozen cabin and spent the next 3 weeks healing up. During this time I started to realize that something was seriously broken inside of me. I didn't really feel anything. I didn't even miss or feel love for my kids. Eventually I moved back into the guest room. My wife started going to church and became a devout Christian. I sort of continued to exist in limbo. I felt no connection to anybody. Started counseling, tried various prescription drugs, all kinds of treatments. I even tried acupuncture. Nothing helped. One evening I went out to get out of the house. There was a group of women at the restaurant. They were clearly on a girls' night out or something. We got to talking. One of them was flirting pretty heavily with me. I could see from the indentation on her finger that she normally had a wedding ring, so I knew she was married. We ended up at a hotel doing the deed. While she was asleep, I opened her phone. She had Face ID. It didn't take me long to confirm she was married, a family with 3 kids. I copied her husband's contact details, took a selfie of the two of us in bed. I got dressed and I sent a picture to her husband along with a message apologizing. But I also lied and told him his wife had told me that this wasn't the first time she did this. Then I woke her up and told her what I've done. The pain in her eyes, the panic, finally I felt something. It was terrible, but at least I felt something. When I came home, I told my wife what I had done. I told her in a way where I tried to hurt her as much as possible. Again, the pain on her face, I felt something again. I felt terrible, but at least I felt something. Now I do this on a regular basis. Every 3 to 4 weeks I go out, pick up a married woman that wants to cheat for some reason. I've become really good at gathering the evidence. Often I get video of it. Sometimes I will turn it into an affair that lasts for weeks, but in the end I always present the evidence to their husbands. I don't know how many families have broken up at this point. I know it's evil. But I just can't help myself. It's compulsive. I can't stop myself. I always also hurt my wife, on purpose, every single time. Either I tell her as painfully as possible, or I will leave a used condom wrapper in my pocket. I have even had some of the women write me love notes that I intentionally left in my pocket for my wife to find. I've had a few more suicide attempts over the years, but I just can't do it. At one point, an angry husband pulled a gun and aimed it at my head. I put my forehead on the muzzle, smiled and asked him to please do me the favor. But he never pulled the trigger, he just started crying. My existence is torture, and I just don't have the strength to end it. I'm still married and I know what I am doing is wrong on every level. I don't know how I ended up like this. The doctors don't seem to have a diagnosis for me either. My wife's affair broke me on a fundamental level. Or maybe I killed off part of my brain when I smashed it into the floor in that cabin. Anyways, be warned, I am out there.